What's up, everybody, and welcome to Otaku Time Machine, a show that takes you through the anime archives of yesteryears. I'm your Captain Frankfurter, and with me we have our skipper, Jutendo64, and our poop deck cleaner, Magically Average. How are y'all boys doing today? How are y'all lads?
Great.
Fine. Why did I get subjugated to the poop deck?
You know why.
Because you poop a lot.
Okay. Unsure how that's
Anyways,
related to any of this, but
but what is related to this is the show that we watched this
it's not.
week, month.
Yeah. What?
We're doing this monthly. We're not doing this weekly.
Good job.
Um, Yes, but this year, this week, this episode, we are taking you back all the way to 2015. We watched Death Parade, and I think for the majority, it was our first time overall watching it all the way through. Like, I know I had watched an episode way back when and decided I'm not going to watch this show. I don't know about any of y'all, but yeah, this was my first time. I don't thoughts, just history with the show. Anybody?
Yeah. I tried to pick it up when it was airing, and I got to episode 2, and not to go too far into details, but it wasn't a great time in my life. So I was like, this show's a little heavy for me to be watching right now, so I'm not going to do it. And just that stigma lasted with me until now. And Frank suggested it, and Tyler agreed. And yeah,
My only connection with it is that my wife watched it and would always sing the intro around the house and do the dance, and that was it. But the anytime between 2014 to 2019 is basically a dark abyss for anime for me because that was end of college into law school. So all of this is new and fresh for me.
Fair enough. And yeah, this is fresh for me as well. I think I watched episode one again, wasn't a fan of it. So I was like, I'm not going to watch this. And ever since then, I'd heard from a lot of different people like, this is a great show. It's just one of those, like, you should watch it, push through the first few, it gets a lot better, etc. And just kind of overall general thoughts, mine, no spoilers. I enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. There are still some things that, like, I'm left with a few questions in regards to why did this thing happen or that thing happen and who were these people exactly. So there are a few questions that I still have, but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this show. Y'all thoughts overall? Just no spoilers.
yeah.
Drew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I really had a lot of fun. Picking it back up after a hiatus of a decade really makes you change your outlook on a show. Um, I went in with a couple preconceptions I'll get into later, but it was a different journey this time around. I had a lot of fun. The characters kept me interested. And it was one of those series that I'll echo what you guys said earlier. It is something you have to watch. It's different, and it's a treat. I can see why it has a very unique fan base behind it, and I would be lying if I didn't say I wish and I pray, and one day maybe we'll have a season 2. But yeah, I liked it. I had
Doubtful.
fun.
Doubtful, but
Doubtful.
yes,
Yeah,
I feel like there are a
exactly.
lot of those people out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you, Tyler?
Um I don't I have mixed feelings. I no spoilers think that a lot of people have rose tinted glasses when it comes to this anime. Um I think it gets a lot of credit where it's due, and I think that people give it a pass where they shouldn't. But I think, it's 2015. You can make arguments. It's an original series. It's done by Madhouse. Like, you have all these different accolades you can give it, and it's great for those, but there are some very serious faults with it that, again, I think people overlook because they go, "Oh, it's such a classic at this point, and it's just so much fun, and there's so much depth to it." And I don't know. At some point, it seems like a lot of people just make excuses for what is, in my opinion, just like a subpar type show.
Fair enough, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more because yeah, I do have some thoughts around that, and interestingly enough, I can connect it to something that we watched in winter season.
I
So
was going to mention it, so I'm sure we're on the same
we'll talk.
page.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but let's get into it. You kind of mentioned it off the top of the rip, or your thoughts. It's an original show by Madhouse, done in 2015. No season two. Um, it isn't necessarily like a open closed story. It is left pretty, not necessarily wide open, but it is
Eh,
left open for like if they want to continue it, they can. But otherwise,
eh.
like, it's fine. It's fine enough of an ending,
I
but
mean, I mean, the entirety of the anime was created from a single short done by the original
by
creator.
Madhouse, yes.
Yeah, it was called Death Billiards. So, and that's what spawned Death Parade. So,
Correct.
I mean, it's all of it. Yeah, I'll get into it when we get into spoilers, but I have thoughts on in that aspect of it.
Fair enough. But getting into it, we're gonna go through a few things before we get into the spoilers. When we get to the spoilers, we will definitely let you know. We're gonna start out with the intro and outro sequences, and going into this, it's like I knew the intro song, I've heard it before, but man, does the intro song like it's one of those things that it just does not match the tone of the show. Excuse me. Something caught in the back of my throat. Does not match the tone of the show at all, and I love it for that.
I
Like it's just
I don't know. I disagree. I
oh,
disagree because the way that the show is presented is your people are brought in and they do some things and it's kind of quirky. And then as you unravel the mystery behind each episode, then you dive deeper into like okay, it's a little bit darker. It's a little more on the gritty side, we'll say. Uh so yeah, so then you could make the argument of like the intro doesn't really match the overall aesthetics and vibe of the series, but I personally think it's kind of a comedic uh tale of just you have this intro and it's very happy go lucky and bubbly, and then you're like, oh, it's something dark's gonna happen, and it does, but it's also like if you read deeper, it's like they're pretty laid back and pretty happy go lucky about certain things.
that's fair enough, I suppose. But yeah, there are certain episodes that I will say that are more fun, or the characters in it kind of have fun before the ultimatum of just like the negativity sets in. Um, so I get it in that aspect, but I feel like general overall tone it doesn't match, but I still love it regardless. I do think that the outro song, let alone sequence, the sequence is more so just like credits rather than much of anything else.
The outro song is also like 100 decibels louder than
It is.
the final scene every time.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but it is. But yeah, I feel like the outro song is more somber and kind of matches the tone by the end of each episode. Drew, any thoughts there with for you?
Um, well, I have like a Spotify playlist I listen to while I'm working, and it has the Death Parade theme in it. So before I had ever watched it, I had like passively heard it. So when I finally put it together, it was like, oh, okay, I see what this is about. All right, yeah, I love this. It's great. Oh my gosh, the animation, it's fun. One of the things I wanted to mention was that whole opening sequence. When I watched it, I felt like I had seen it somewhere before. And then I started looking up the credits for Madhouse and what they've done. And they've done like the Persona opening movies for
Oh,
the game, like for Persona Golden and things like that. So I'm like, okay, like that's their style, that's their vibe. Okay, like I understand how my brain's working to connect these dots. So I'll agree. It is the opening is a really great way to kind of bring you into the show because like it gets you excited. Yeah, like I was watching episodes back to back for once because usually when I watch a show for this, I put like episodes aside. I'm like, all right, I'll watch one today, I'll watch one tomorrow. Um, but I had these running on a second monitor. I watched the dub.
Hmm.
Um,
the gasp.
yeah. But I watched them like really quickly together. So I found it was a great opening for me, at least, to keep my attention and keep me in there.
Fair enough. Kind of on that note, did you all both watch the dub version? Because I watched the dub as well. I
Yes.
found like it was just very accessible, and it was one of those things that
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
it just honestly was very good. I thought
Yeah.
the voice actors did a very good job. And I know this whole debate, people love to say sub dub or whatever, you should watch subtitle, but it's like whenever there's a good dub, it's like I don't mind.
It's a great dub.
It's really just fun to watch a dub.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there's any sort of lost in translation type issues with this one. There's no real when I say lost in translation, like puns or references to Japan that would have been lost in translation lyrically or um, with the script. So I think that the dub is very suitable to watch just in general. But with that, intro outro out of our hands, solid overall. Let's get into the setting and the characters without spoilers as to like plot wise. The setting takes place in a bar, which also takes place in a building, which the building is 90 some odd floors, 100 floors tall. And usually what happens is two characters come through the elevators, they play a game, and then things happen after the game. And that's pretty much where our setting is. We go a handful of other places throughout the episodes, but it really just kind of revolves around the random people that come through and then just a small main cast. And I think for an original, it benefits just because it's like, hey, let's keep everything nice and tight. Let's not expand way too far out. But that's just my opinion. What did y'all think of the characters, the settings, the rooms that we were able to see, etc.?
I thought it was an interesting take on what's already been, I shouldn't say done before, but the setting is something that has been described in a number of different ways. And depending on the type of text you read and other media sources you might watch that also portrays this area, we'll say, to leave it as undescript as possible. I thought it was interesting and unique, but I will say I found that the characters drove the setting a bit more themselves and like how they interacted with the different floors, just how their personalities matched the different rooms. I I got less like invested in where they were and more so in who was there, I'll say, as the anime progressed. So it was fun, it was interesting, again unique, but I felt that the characters definitely carried the majority of the weight of the anime from that aspect.
Drew?
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to add though, like when you're in like a certain character's quote unquote room, you can really tell that it's theirs. Like the vibe matches. There is some color palette um that's involved. So like a character who maybe has more cool tones, more of a casual tone, like their room would match that, or someone who's more of a like a louder character. You have the like warmer, hotter tones almost, right? So, and that goes for like another character who kind of like does their own thing, is what I'll say, is like their room matches their vibe, their kind of their voice and who they are in the story. So I wouldn't like this is going to be surprising from me to say as the guy who is addicted to background art. I didn't really pay that much attention to it this time around. I was more into the characters, the design, and the story. And later on, when we talk about episodes specifically, like the attention to detail in some of these situations was really cool. So um, I think everything here is are great puzzle pieces, but to borrow from that analogy as well, I'm not looking at the border of the puzzle. I'm looking at like the center,
Mm-hmm.
and I like those key parts rather than everything that puts it together.
Yeah. And I do like the fact that when you talk about everybody's room and how different they are, I do like the fact that they are similar in that they're all
Mm.
a different version of a bar, essentially,
Yes.
because they all have a bar. And yeah, no, there's more that to kind of go into that, and I think we can start talking spoilers here because at this point we're just dancing around talking about spoilers. So from here on out, spoiler alert: if you've not watched Death Parade, turn this off. Go watch it for yourself. And come back and see what we have to say and see if it compares to what you think. Um, but yeah, we're basically in purgatory. We got to go back. We got to get back to the island. Um, I find it interesting that they do have the setting as a bar because bartender, like if you are a favorite or a frequent at a bartender is one of those people that you trust the most, like telling your deepest darkest secrets. So I find that that aspect of talking about your life and showing your emotions, etc., or your dark side is kind of another like little bit of a interesting aspect that it's like I'm talking to my bartender about this, and just like the trust and the openness that I can have with my bartender is kind of a neat perspective. But yeah, I think spoilers overall. Drew, let's start with you, and I can go last
Okay.
on this. But like, tell me, what did you think of the show? What are you confused about, if anything, or have any
Ooh,
questions,
I
etc.?
do have I have two questions and two confusions.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna start with those more just because I need to hear you guys talk about them first. Is
Mm.
a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, in a place called in on a website that we shouldn't talk about anymore. Essentially, there's a anime group. You know, it's the one with the four
Oh yeah,
leaves.
how are you? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's an anime board in there, and while this was airing, I was reading about it, and these people were mentioning, "Oh my God, did you see this character in Death Parade? Can you believe he's there? That means he actually died. He doesn't go to he doesn't get
Oh,
reincarnated,
I know who you're talking about.
right? It's Light
Yeah,
from
it's
Death Note."
light. It's light
And
Yagami.
people were freaking out. People were going nuts. They're like, "We're gonna get a Light episode. The final episode's gonna be about him, and we're gonna judge him, and we're finally gonna get redemption for L." And everyone's like throwing up their hats, freaking out. Finally, justice.
Yay.
You get absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So
It
my whole freak out about that is I want that episode. I thought it was like going to be a lot better. And that's just why. Why would you even put him in there unless it's just a cameo and it was
it
just like a fun little
it was
tee?
yeah, it was probably just like a little nod cuz I
Exactly.
who did Death Note? Like which studio did Death Note? It wasn't Madhouse, was it?
I I can look it up. Just give me a
But
second.
but I do when the moment that you were like cameo, I was like I know who you're talking about. I said the same
Madhouse
thing.
did it.
It, wa-
Madhouse
it
did
was
it.
Madhouse. Okay, so there you
Yeah,
go. There's your connection. It was probably just like a little quirky nod, right? Because it's an original series, so
exactly.
they had full freedom to do whatever they wanted with it, at the direction of the creator. But yeah, this is my wife and I watched it together. She was like, I'll watch it again. I was like, all right, cool. And I had that freak out moment with her because I was like, it's Light Yagami. And she's like,
Yeah, let's go.
and I'm like, oh right, you've never watched Death Note. Oops. But yeah,
Is it
that was
bad
funny.
that I did not put that together until now because of the fact that it's just like I'm so far removed from Death Note. I haven't watched Death Note in over a decade that I just like completely didn't
Just
realize it.
yeah.
It's one of
Yeah,
those things
no.
where the otaku in me was like, "Oh my God, let's go,"
Let's
and
go.
then and then he immediately gets crushed. Um,
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on a couple of the characters because I really did enjoy the development of Deckham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I enjoyed his journey, but the thing that got me was when we meet another bartender, and that's Ginty,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
right? Um, because in my mind, again, someone who hasn't watched the show before, I thought we were going to get a whole bunch of bartenders. I thought after we got introduced to Ginty, maybe every episode's going to be a different bartender. Let's see how everyone else judges. Now we do get that with his game, which is a little more severe, I felt. But it was still really interesting to see that, yes, there is a difference between arbiters, because if you didn't know, Deckham and Ginty are arbiters. They judge your soul. They decide whether you're a good soul, a bad soul, and then they give you the opportunity at the end to go to heaven or hell.
Well, reincarnated or go into the void. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say we didn't really talk through the full premise of the anime, which is, as you were just highlighting, Drew. Effectively, every episode, two people come through these elevators. They don't know what the shit happened. They just meet a bartender and another girl who's with him, and they have to play games. And as they're playing games, normally it's like either something mentally or physically painful that's taking place that's causing them to remember
Into the void.
what happened. Yeah. And like based on their reactions and how they interact with one another too, because most of the time they're strangers.
Yeah.
The arbiter, who's the bartenders, will judge if they are fit to be reincarnated or if they're better cast off into the void where their soul just lingers on for all eternity, just bodiless. So, it's so to that end, and going further in, I thought the first 6 episodes fucking sucked.
Oh.
I was bored as shit. I kept looking at
man,
my
we're
wife.
On the same,
I
we're
kept
on the
looking at
same
my wife.
page of Zenshu, essentially. This has the same problem Zenshu has.
Yep. 10 years later, we get another original, this time done by Mappa with Zenshu, and it's the same shit of like you have to trudge through just nothingness. Like it really felt like you were watching just purely a game show, the anime, with no real benefit at the end. Like you didn't get any sort of satisfaction. All you did was
Right.
see two people, and yes, there were sob stories, and there was some like, oh, whoa, like this moment's crazy. Do you see that crazy bitch smash that dude's face into that video game? Like that's wild. Like, oh, what a reaction. And it's like yes, okay, you get it very early on, like they're in purgatory, and this is a test to see how, like, I don't want to say like the good and the bad of the soul, but basically it's just like they're testing the human emotions of people to see like, are you going to fight it, or are you going to like kind of circle back into your look for myself, don't care about anyone else, and show your true colors, right? And
Right.
and then we get like further on, which is where the story actually starts getting somewhat good. You get the whole backstory of how the arbiters, the bartenders, are effectively big walking mannequins that don't have emotions, that don't have human memories. They're just there to judge people's souls. But Deckham is our little special boy, and he was imbued with human emotions, I guess.
Emotion.
Yeah. So, and then
Which
there's a lot of
find-
there's a lot of inference that there's one female character who's also dressed like the bartenders, but she's always around, that she's the devil. And then there's Buddha, who is supposedly supposed to portray like, I guess the guardian of heaven or of reincarnation, because in Buddhism that's a high belief, is that you'll be reincarnated. So I don't think they wanted to hide it all too much, but they sure as shit didn't come out and say it. So it's just a lot of inference. But you could just be like, you can say it, and it doesn't like detract
No one's gonna
from.
be mad.
Yeah, well, it's not going to detract from like the mystery and the just kind of hiding everything behind behind the curtains. Like, oh, you don't know what we're up to all the time. It's like we can kind of guess, and our guesses are pretty accurate. It's just like it didn't make sense to me why they didn't just come out and say it. But
there's a few things that I had here, and I kind of like the parallels between Ginty and Deckham, it only took me, you know, 12 hours removed from the show to realize that Ginty and Deckham, basically their last two tests essentially were the same exact, but you see that Ginty doesn't have human emotions because he doesn't react of like he doesn't have like the emotional reaction, I should say, that Deckham has, where it's like, we're gonna test you. Would you give up another human life to save either yourself or somebody that's very close to you?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the whole Light Yagami issue for Ginty, and then Deckham with the main character, the main girl, Kurokami, where she decides, no, I'm not going to give up another life. It's somebody else's. They mean something to somebody else, etc. So I like that parallel, but it took me entirely way too long to realize it on my own. But the biggest question that I had, and yes, while Oculus, the guy with the flower beard and hairdo, is like Buddha, and then I think you're referring to Nona
Yes, no.
as the little girl who's like the devil. I don't know if she's necessarily the devil because I mean, I guess she's trying to give the fuck, I forget what they're called, arbiters, human emotions, but it's not necessarily for a negative reason. I understand like the reasoning behind it, but my question is, for like all of these characters and who's who, is the cat just God? Is the cat God and it just like decides where it wants to
Ginty's
like
cat?
lay?
Ginty's cat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I think that's more of just like
Because the cat is,
Because like
it's a black cat, and black cats
he's got
in
he's
lore.
got his paw wrapped up too, right? Like
Yeah,
he's injured.
yeah.
yeah, he's got
I
one of
think
his
I
If
paws wrapped up.
anything, like he could be quote unquote Lucifer, but
Yeah, I was gonna
The
say
only reason
I think the connection would just be to highlight, and maybe this speaks to the fact that this blew over your head and took you 12 hours to connect. I think it's supposed to highlight the fact that Ginty shouldn't have emotions and shouldn't care about anything else because he doesn't understand that concept, and yet he cares for a cat and also cares about who the cat goes to because he complained that the cat jumped over into the girl's arms and like she was petting him and he was like, that you stupid little feline, right? I think it's supposed to emphasize that piece of like, don't forget the arbiters don't have emotions. Deckham is the
which I
special one.
which I found weird because Deckham for the entirety of the show had zero emotions, and then I don't
yeah.
like when he does get emotions and it just bubbles up out of fucking one last final scene, and then it's just like, ah.
Deckham is a he's very far on the spectrum, we'll say.
Yeah.
He's out there. So I think it's also supposed to highlight the fact that he is a new arbiter too. He took over for an alcoholic woman who got transitioned to the memory department.
I mean, if we're being honest, most of these people are alcoholics.
Nah.
Like
And
Who is it?
Quinn, the girl who took he took
Quinn
over
Quinn
for.
specifically likes liquor from the human world.
Correct.
So keep that in mind. The whole thing was like how they were presenting him at the beginning, and then obviously as you progress through and more pieces are starting to come up and you're putting them together, is Deckham is just new to being an arbiter. So you're like, oh, he's just this is his new gig. He's just getting the hang of it, right? And then you come to find out it's like at the end you're like, oh, he is unique in that he was given human emotions to try to grapple with and understand. And so all this time we were just under the presumption that like he's new, he doesn't know how to navigate this. He's learning, and meanwhile he's more so understanding what he's feeling because it's something that he's never experienced. So it's just it's one of those it's one of those choices on presentation where you go, I see it, I get it, you just didn't have to do it the way you did it. You made him seem
That's
like
fair.
a monotoned Neanderthal at
Well,
times.
Yeah, because there's a few instances where like we kind of get a little bit that he's different because there's she passes out for some reason, I can't remember, and he like actually cares for her, takes her like to bed, tucks her in, and like makes sure she's okay. And then when she calls him out about the the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, there's this magical button he has that makes the tests harder and to really show what people feel and blah blah blah.
Put them in a
Um,
stressful environment.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And when she calls him out too much on it, he actually like kind of hesitates from time to time. And to me, like if he was like the stoic, robotic person he's portrayed to be, that he wouldn't have like kind of held his hand and been like, no, I can't do this. It's more like he's trying to figure it out too. Like, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to feel this way? So when you look back at it, yeah, those are like very similar to what Magically Average said. Yes, the puzzle pieces do fall in place, and you're like, oh, okay, like I see what you're doing here. But I can also agree with the whole bubbling up and him having his explosion of emotions. It was like, was that
It didn't
earned?
it didn't feel earned.
Yeah,
Well, and it was something that he created too, right? Like that whole
yeah,
ending
Yeah.
sequence. So like, okay, let's because we're gonna keep talking in circles. Let's paint the timeline of things. First 6 episodes, you get 6 different people well, sorry, 6 episodes, 12 people, 2 people an episode. 2 come in, potentially 1 comes out, but most of the time it's 2, just one of them gets sent to the void.
First 2 episodes, though, I should say, is one is from Deckham's perspective, the other is from the main girl's perspective. So 10 people.
Yeah.
Continue.
That was annoying in itself too.
Love you.
But not you, the episodes.
but also you.
Not everything is about you, Frank. Yeah, so now it is about you. But like all they do is it's just like here's the death game, and then you get to see the backstory of the people that are involved, and then you come to these speculations of like, oh, this person's so mean and awful, and they're gonna go to the void, and then the last memory is you're like, oh my gosh, redemption, no, save them, oh my god, and I just sat there and I'm just like, I am bored, I'm bored, please make this have any substance to it. Give me something to grab onto. And then like randomly they'll throw scenes of Nona and did you say his name was Oculus? I only knew him as Lotus Petal guy.
Yeah, I'm on the Mal page for it, and the character listing, his name is Oculus.
Cool.
I don't even think did she ever
Oculus
say his name?
Oculus by Facebook. Or Meta. He like there's just scenes of them playing billiards with planets, and you're like, oh, that's weird, it's billiards with planets, this is so cool. And then other times they'll just throw in Ginty or the random elevator dude that's just a big pushover. Like it was hard. None of it mattered. They didn't do anything with it. And you can argue like, oh, it's to show their characters and the personality traits and like how they interact with one another, and you know how they're positioned within this, within purgatory and stuff. And it's like, great, cool, grand, wonderful. I don't need that sprinkled about like throughout 6 episodes. Just give it to me all in one, because you spent an entire episode 2, just repeating what episode 1 did with literally explanations throughout, where Nona's just taking the girl by the hand and going, you want to know how this is done? Well, let me tell you. And let me spend 5 minutes explaining it. Oh, you see that? Oh, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm going to spend another 3 minutes explaining that to you. And oh, episode's over. What did we accomplish? Nothing. All right, cool. Next episode. What are we doing next episode? We're doing darts or some shit? Awesome. Cool. Air hockey? Fun. Bowling? You betcha. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, man. It like the first 6 episodes were so aggravating because I didn't know what they were doing with the story. And by the end of episode 6, I just went, cool, there's no story. I can just turn my brain off and not give a shit anymore because nothing's going to happen. But then they were like, oh, right, we got to finish this somehow. Let's flip the switch. And lo and behold, the story starts and you're like, okay, a little late than never, but fine, whatever. And you get this big backstory of the girl and like how she's here and why she's here. You slowly find out about her death. You slowly uncover the mystery behind Deckham. You start to get a little bit more insight into just like how everything is managed with the arbiters. You see a bit more of Ginty and his whole situation, right? And like you're like, awesome. I'm so glad I got this pumped into me for like 5 episodes straight. But like, why wouldn't you start it at the beginning. Like you can build it out at the beginning.
Breadcrumb it to us.
Yeah, it was the same complaint that we talked about it on the last episode of Baka Bites. It's the same issue with Zenshu. Like
Yep.
Zenshu had nothing for the first six episodes. There was nothing. They used the same stupid sequence of her getting ready to draw that they poured like 90% of their budget into to make it flashy. And they repeated that about 10 times, it felt like, in one episode at times. And then they were just like, oh, wait, what time is it? 7th episode time.
Wow,
Get the story pumping up, guys. Start the printers. Get that shit rolling. We got to get a story going. And then it was like, oh, wow, there's a story here. Cool. I assumed that there wasn't and just was going about my day thinking that I was never going to get any sort of type of closure. It was just going to be fun, quirky shenanigans with the sob story every episode until the very end. Doop-a-doo. It was so annoying from that piece. And I feel like I frustrated my wife at times because I would look at her through the first half and I'm like, does it get good? Because it's not. When does it happen? I'm waiting.
So to circle back to my question as to why I thought the black cat might be God, is that this world, if it weren't for, Flower Beard Boy Oculus, if it wasn't for him saying like talking to Nona and saying, oh, God hasn't been here or whatever, like he comes in and out and just like I just haven't seen him in a while. And then the cat is just there and seemingly out of nowhere as well, and then just by the end of it, cat's gone, don't know where he is. It just kind of happening along. So, and the cat is a smart being because they're participating in the, I guess we'll call it, death game of freaking Twister.
But it's just clicking a button.
But it's just clicking a button, right? But at the same time, it's just like it knows when to click the button. That they got to be pretty smart for that. But at the same time, that's why I was just like, I thought to myself, is this cat just secretly God and it's just judging everybody around him?
So
orbiting the arbiters.
I had a really big gripe with, because we said at the beginning and kind of applauded the show for the fact that it was set in one area. Like we were kind of limited to just this makeup of purgatory and how they've architected it, where it's like this big building and there's all the different rooms or bartender rooms, and then Nona's room is, Drew, you're alluding to it, like she's kind of secluded into her own house, right?
Yep.
And like she's kind of all by herself, which is again why I just assumed it was the devil, because she's also on the top floor. Where the devil,
she's on the 90th floor out of I think 100 or something like that.
I believe she's on the top,
near the top.
But
I'll look it up. But
the frustrating part to me at the very beginning is because as they go through and then first episode and you're like, oh, what's happening? And then you find out they're like, the people that come into the bar are dead, and you're like, oh my God, they're dead. What? Deckham says a line and it stuck with me from the very first episode, and I was aggravated as the episodes went on by this. Deckham said, people only come here if they die at the very same time. And it seemed like they held true to that at times, and then other times they didn't. Other times they were just like, we said that? Oopsie, we forgot. And I'm like you don't get a pass, man. Like that's a big part of this whole setup, like how you've created this world, and that like everyone that shows up at the bar, those people that come through the elevators into your bar have died at the same time. And that's like their connection in the world. There was the one episode with the mom and the boy, that the guy that committed suicide. He, like, you just have to assume they died at the same time, right? But like the first episode, you clearly see them die at the same time. Because they're a married couple where the husband was a dickhead and he drove the car off a cliff, basically. Not on purpose, but kind of on purpose because he was driving like an ass, right?
He was trying to grab his wife's phone and he drove off the cliff.
There was another episode where two people were on a bus and the bus got in an accident. You can assume that they died at the same time. But then there was like a handful where you're just like, oh, it was Ginty's. Ginty had two guests, and it was
The
a
girl, the
my-
it was a
girl and the pop
fangirl.
star.
Yeah, it was a fangirl and the pop star. The pop star got murdered by
A
his
bomb
By
in his
his
breakfast.
his
Yeah.
ex-lover's sister
there was a bomb
via
in the
breakfast.
yeah, because his former lover had committed suicide, and then the sister was like, "Hope you like C4." Get it? Like,
In
or
your- in
vitamin
your-
C. Damn it, I messed it up. Hang on, let me rewind a little bit. Hope you took your vitamin C4 this morning, and then boom, he died. But then the fangirl who is in the bar at the same time, she just slipped on soap in her shower and cracked her skull. So you
But
just
specifically, she died after a concert. She was like, "That was such a great concert."
yeah.
And
So it's
then
like the
goes to the bath
nighttime,
with like, yeah.
and he died
So-
in the morning. So it's like that. Those pieces are frustrating to me, and I know they're small,
Maybe-
and I know people are gonna say you're just nitpicking, but like that's a huge, huge component to how you've built out the world, and like
Listen though,
the connection
you broke it.
pieces, and you broke it.
she had a brain bleed and she slowly died over hours in her shower. And then he opened up the C4 breakfast and died.
Oh, okay, got it.
Maybe.
But
you
like-
have
but-
to. But the thing is, you have to go on the fan forums to find that out.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
that's stupid.
Uh,
No, it's not. It's not implicitly explained. I don't believe.
I believe Drew is being facetious here.
That. Oh, well,
Ah.
But so, because that ties into something else, and I know I'm gonna keep complaining because I feel like it's a big piece to this, because we've all said like this area is purgatory, right? The implication
Mhm.
of purgatory is that your soul has not been deemed good nor bad upon death, and you cannot be judged accurately, right? No matter what religion you believe in, or the in terms of like anything in the afterlife, like the concept of purgatory is that you're in a limbo. Like you're not in heaven, you're not in hell, you're not on the living plane of existence, you're in limbo, right? And you are yet to be judged. But they constantly complain there are people dying too fast. To which I would say that shouldn't matter all too much, because not everyone goes to purgatory, right? But apparently they fucking do. Because they're like,
Yeah.
we can't keep up with the demand. And by demand, we mean the dead people. And we got to pump out all these memories, and we got to process them, and we got to ship them off to different bars.
Not sure if these two murderers should be deemed worthy or not of
Yeah, but they're
reincarnation.
yeah, and then, well, on top of that too, the annoying part is that like Declan will be like, "Oh, it's our first one of the day," and then presumably it's the only one because they never show like the same day sequence. And then sometimes they're like, "You have the day off," and I was like, "How the fuck do you have the day off, shithead? You've got 7,000 people dying every minute apparently, and that's a big deal." It's just it's the continuity of it all connecting with one another. Again, if you're building out a bespoke world of which you've created purgatory in this new concept of like it's multiple floors, and there's bars, and these arbiters judge your soul, and that's how you finally get pushed through to either heaven or hell, or in this case reincarnation or the void. Like you have to stay true to it. You have to keep some level of consistency and continuity. Otherwise, once that starts falling apart, you lose a lot of your story they're building. And because it took them until episode 7 or 8 to start building out the story, it was not a good start. It was a very, very bad start, very rocky start. Like overall just bad.
I agree. I agree with most of what you say. I think the thing that not necessarily confused me the most, but it, for the lack of a better term, baffled me, is why the fuck were the pop star and the Gyaru, why do they stick around so long? They finished their game, they got their judgment, and then like they were there for a while. And then the guy just seemingly lost his soul, or just took a really long nap apparently. And then they're like, cool, get the fuck out of here.
So that was the judgment piece. So she stayed around because Ginty couldn't judge her, apparently.
But like,
Because she sacrificed her life for him, and because he doesn't understand humans and just assumes that they're all daft monkeys, basically, primates,
which he shouldn't understand daft either.
Well, yeah, but regardless, continuity, again, regardless, he just assumes, oh, Humans only look out for themselves. But this human sacrificed herself for that other guy who she basically didn't even know. She only knew him because he was a pop star. How do you judge that, right? And that was what he was grappling with. Declan was grappling with like just the concept of human emotions and being like, I'm starting to feel this way, even though the data I've been given says otherwise. Help me, help me, help me. Error, blue screen. Like, that was the difference. This part that you're referring to when the pop star comes back, he masked a dummy to be him and was like, oh, if you want to wake him up, fangirl, you got to do something. And that something is send yourself to the void. And then he sent them both to the
Kill
void.
Light Yagami.
Yeah, well, yeah, kill Light Yagami, basically. But yeah, that whole thing, like I'm assuming this was like the tear jerker, the heart wrenching moment is when he sent both the pop star and the Gyaru into the void, and then they found each other and they met and they became one soul, floating in the ether for eternity.
So they're lonely together.
Exactly. Like it. I think it was stuff like that that made me also quite upset because they present a lot of these outcomes as like here's your payoff, right? Like you've sat through this, you've witnessed the ups and downs of these people's lives, watch them bash another one's skull into an arcade machine or pop organs via darts. And now your payoff is like you get closure for these people. Like the person that you felt was bad is bad, and they're going to the void, or the person that you thought was good is being reincarnated. There was the sweet episode with the sweet old lady that showed up, and she was like, "I'm dead, anti," and Declan was like, "The fuck?" And she was like, "You showed me
Yes,
something
you
that
are.
doesn't exist anymore, so I'm on to your games, sonny boy." And then she's like, "I'm ready to go. Bye." And people are like, oh, it was just like a heartwarming tale. And I sat through and I was like, get this crotchety old bitch out of here. When's the story happening? I don't care that she died before she could make her racist character this little boy riding on a giant chicken.
Right.
It was a little racist. It was a little racist. It had some very like very suspect tones about it, we'll say. But
Fair enough.
that's just like,
Okay.
again, it was, they presented it as like a, here you go, viewer. And I was just like, you keep feeding me the same food each episode. I'm bored. Do something different. Do a flip.
So you and I have talked entirely way too long, Drew. I need to hear your voice a bit
Drew
more
likes
here.
when I yell. He
I
said
do,
so on the
'cause
last
it's
episode.
Because it's not directed at him.
Yeah, for once.
Well, I
Granted, it's
can't-
not directed at me inherently, but like it's not directed at him, and that's why he doesn't mind.
Frank was the kid in the basement while his parents were yelling and be like, "Don't come down here." I'm the opposite, where I really enjoyed a lot of the games. The arcade machine episode is
I'm
my
gonna
favorite,
yell at
and
you
that
now.
Oh, that's my
Oh.
the arcade is I hard disagree. That's my least favorite one.
What? The reason I liked it is how cheesy it was, and then the attention to detail to those Japanese arcade machines, and how the I don't know, the paddle like screws on. I just thought
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah.
But the reason I like that episode is because like having someone who's like clearly invested in video games and like I know combos, and having someone who's like, I have to memorize this shit, took me back to me opening a Street Fighter manual when I played Street Fighter for the first time and looked at like Ryu and Ken's combo lists and been like, I have to memorize this shit? No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna perfect being Guile because he has two things. That's why I liked it. But seeing the repetitiveness of like, these bowling balls are your hearts, and when you put your hand in them, they feel warm, and the guy's like, oh. Yeah, that was a little weird. That was a little weird for me. There was air hockey was different. But again, almost every one of the episodes is like, you're gonna play a game. That game's gonna be entertaining, but it's also your body parts. Like that's what I felt like the connection was. Is like no matter what, they had to connect that body part dot. Fine, go for it. But I I have to say I wasn't bored the whole time. The first 2 episodes, yes. Then I got interested, and then of course, like you guys, when the story started taking off, by all means, it was what hooked me, because then you start getting interested, trying to figure stuff out on your own. And that's where I just like left the show on, and I was like, no, I'm going to marathon this and get through it. Um, the one thing I will say is my pet peeve was that it always seemed to be the same, almost cookie cutter characters, whereas like one of these characters might be a little good, one of them might be a little bad, one of them might be a little arrogant, one might be a little sad. And
One
as
fish,
it
two
progresses,
fish, red
yeah,
fish, blue
exactly.
fish.
And then like Otaku guy is angry because he made a mistake, and working lady is mad because she left her family. Like, it always seems to be like everyone has regrets. Like, no regrets. But
Regrets.
regrets. But it always seemed to be like a very simple chain of events for like those character development, and it was, some of them had great development and it did contribute to the story. Like the detective, I thought that was a really cool twist with him, and how him and that other guy connected. So like that was different. But again, that wasn't the story I was excited for. I was more interested in finding out, like, will she get her memories back? Does she know what she is? Is she a new arbiter in training? Is she going to be a replacement? Like, what's going to happen? And then the story just kind of goes, well, there it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, thank you.
So I just want to make one comment, because I feel like people need to judge me for this, and I'll be open to that point.
Let's call Deckham.
Yeah. Like everything that you mentioned about the games and the people and how they're like cookie cutter, like I agree to an extent. It's, again, everything about those games was like the end closure piece, right? Like when you finally get the moment of revelation on like how they died or what happened leading up to their death, and their reactions are either like oh my god, I'm dead, what do I do? Or like it's, oh my god, I'm dead, I'm going to go kill someone else now because I'm furious. Like the range of emotions that people experience at the end, it's supposed to make you as the viewer like feel something, right? Like the arcade episode, like the ending moment was sad because the mom, even though she was a horrible woman, you get to see all this past stuff of like she had a baby young and she got beat by her ex at the time, and then she had more children and she just kept getting abandoned and she was stuck with her children, but she tried to provide and then landed into stardom and still was a horrible person but was just providing for her kids, and then her assistant killed her I think with like a rope,
with a tie,
with a
like
tie
a
or something.
scarf or something. Yeah,
that was
something.
weird.
And then you get like the juxtaposed side of the guy who's apparently died at the same time, we just assume, who like parents got divorced when he was younger, and like dad remarried to a woman who was very nice to him and didn't do anything wrong to him and just wanted to like be there for him and was like, I hope he'll call me mom one day or see me as mom. And then my bro was just like, life sucks, and jumped out the window.
Yeah, like that was a really big,
And okay,
I don't know, plot gap.
And
it felt like
and I am not by any means making a commentary on mental health issues, because they are rampant in every society and they're not supported by the government. We don't have enough programs for them, okay? I will go at lengths to talk about it. I'm not saying in this situation like, oh, mental health isn't a problem. It is, okay? My whole issue with how they presented that sequence, along with a number of the other ones in the death game portion, is that they try to make you care about the characters once all the stuff has come out. They want you to take them as they are revealed, exiting the elevators, make some assumptions about them, get some, an idea of like who they are, right? And then as things start to unravel, you're like, oh my god, I was right on. I knew it. Like I knew that this person was a shithead, or like I knew that they were actually a nice person. Or you go, oh my god, that was what, I never would have thought that happened. That's what they're trying to elicit from viewers. My reaction every goddamn time was, I'm glad you're dead. I'm glad you're gone. Life is better without you people. Because I was just like,
You
this is
people.
frustrating. I was like, this is frustrating. You offer nothing to the story. You offer nothing to the plot. You have all these are just isolated storylines limited to the 18 minutes that they're shown in the episode, because they always reserve like 4 for some random bullshit of like, there might be a story. Whoo, you don't know. But it's just like, they want to make you care, but they don't do a good job of making you care. They do so through like trying to poke at your emotions and get you to either feel sorrow towards the characters or anger towards the characters, or, you know, at times kind of elation with like the grandma where you're like, oh my God, that's like so heartwarming. But like she left on good terms. Like she knew that this was the end and you just know she's going to get reincarnated. Oh my gosh, I feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Again, I was like, glad that old dumb bitch died because she didn't do nothing for the story. She just was a blockade. I didn't care enough. All they did was they played old maid for like 10 minutes, 10 real life minutes. They played old maid. Like the game probably lasted like maybe 30. It was 10 minutes of the fucking episode. They played old maid.
But Tyler, the people weren't supposed to be emotional for you. They're supposed to be show Deckham emotions and have him have an emotional reaction.
Clearly, that didn't do much. Because the story, because that didn't start happening until like episode 8. It was just like that's all I want. It's fine if you have a shtick and you have a particular manner in which you want to articulate something to viewers, but there has to be a purpose beyond just like a showmanship type thing. Like you can't go ta-da and then have people start asking you questions and go, oops, let me pull that back. Like you have to give more to it.
So I'm gonna assume that's gonna be your final thoughts. Can you put a Drew? Let's get your final thoughts. I'll give my final thoughts. We could put a score on it, and then we'll head out of here.
Wrap it up.
Okay, so great animation quality. Really enjoyed that. The character designs very unique. Everyone has their own vibe. I enjoy that because the worst thing you could do is just like make people way too similar. Watching this for the second time, fully invested, a lot better around for me. And it did a good job at being a unique show, taking stuff a little differently. By all means, like let's take that with a grain of salt. I stop making that look. Okay, I can see you. You already said your things. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I liked it. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, my sentiment is similar. Other than the fact that you and I have complete opposite tastes in the death games that happened, I think that the arcade one was god awful. But I really enjoyed the billiards and the. Honestly, like I'm very split about the Twister episode and just that because of how many fucking like how it broke the show. But like I did enjoy the bowling one. I do like those kind of sentimental stories. So like that one got me. I really enjoyed it. But again, I think that like overall as an overall package, it could have been done better, but it was still very good. As you said, Drew, the animation was great, character design was great. The fucking thing that I love the most for the character designs and kind of just showing just a small bit of personality between them was the fact that Nona, this like small woman character, had fucking what are the straps that are basically like belt buckles that go over your thing? What
Suspenders?
suspenders? Yeah, I couldn't think of it. But like she would put her arms in it and just like rest her arms inside the suspenders. Like I don't know. To me, it's just kind of like I like that small little detail of her character. Um, but yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a score on it, top it all off, I'd probably give it like a 7.75, like 7.75.
Yeah.
Overall, I wouldn't go higher than that.
I'm in the same. I'm in the same ballpark. I was gonna say like 7.5, like 7.5 on the lower end. Like I wouldn't go too high, mainly because like it's a slow burn. It takes too long to get going, but again, I was along for the ride. I'm a person who likes to watch something and have my reality suspended. I don't like to nitpick every single thing because I'm impatient for story.
That
Tyler?
sentence hurt my brain. Like 6.
All right. Yeah.
It's a 6. If you
Okay.
if you're fine just getting fed slop, and then at the very end of your 12-course meal they go, "Oh, here's a slight sliver of filet mignon, sir," and you're like, "Oh, oh, good, delicious, 10 out of 10." Then you've got something wrong with you. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a 6 out of 10. It's for an original series. I hold those with higher regard because you have limitless freedom to do with whatever you want with the story and how it's progressed and how it's told. You have full reins on your characters. You have full reins on your setting. You have to hit them if you want to make some type of decent anime. And god damn it, why do we get so many shitty ass original series? This is not a shitty ass one, but it damn sure came close to it. It damn sure did. It's a 6
And we're
out
damn
of 10.
sure happy that you stuck around this long. Thank you so
I'm
much
not.
for joining us this week.
I'm still angry. You shouldn't watch this episode or listen to it for that matter.
Well, too late. You're this far in. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We will be back next month. I got to remember, this is a monthly series. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode. We will be going into the wondrous year of 2016. So until next time, Spark Triumph. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.